The story begins in Seoul in the year 202X. A rich guy was living in a spacious condominium, listening to the news about the next chairman of one of the top 3 conglomerates in Korea, the Samjeon Group. This guy was Jeon Seong-guk, the new Samjeon chairman. Right now, he had finished taking a bath and was chuckling while listening to the news. He was so proud of himself and screamed, "Do go on, praise me more." He claimed that he was now the king of Samjeon. He was thrilled since he had worked for this moment for so long. Not just literacy, sports, and studying abroad, but also keeping his stupid siblings in line, cleaning up after his uncle, taking care of his wife from their arranged marriage. He had done it all perfectly. On top of that, a meticulously crafted public image. For him, it was absolutely perfect. He was holding a glass of wine and said that it was only natural that he became the owner of Samjeon. He was holding his phone while planning to get rid of Jeon Seong-guk's underlings. His phone and a glass of wine suddenly dropped when he felt something. He gasped and crawled on the ground. He was suffering from difficulty breathing. Behind him was his grandfather's photo. This old man, the founder of Samjeon, died of a heart attack, and he was afraid, thinking that he would also die the same way as this old man. He lost consciousness and woke up when he felt someone rubbing his cheek. He was puzzled as it turned out he was reborn as a baby. His parents carried him as they were taking a photo. He touched his cheek. He was puzzled and suddenly cried as he didn't know what was happening. His parents panicked upon seeing him crying. They were living in a small house with lots of neighbors. He was also named Seong-guk by his parents. His mother, Kim Soyoung, who was 21 years old, adored him so much. His father was 23 years old and named Jeon Seong, and he proclaimed that his son was even cuter than most celebrity babies. "Our Seong-guk, it's great that he was born so handsome, right?" Soyoung stated. In their view, they saw their son Seong-guk as a cute little baby, but for Seong-guk, it annoyed him since it wasn't great for him that he was reborn in someone else's body. He threw his pacifier away, which made his father wonder if there was a problem. He cried in confusion, still wondering what was happening. He didn't know where his perfect body had gone, the one that was 183 centimeters tall, 75 kilograms, and could lift 500 kilograms. He couldn't forget that he was born into a great family with a fit body and perfect specs. Now his life was different from his previous one. He lives in a small and dirty room with a not-so-clean bed and clothes. In short, he had become a baby in a poor household, born to a young orphan couple in their 20s. He recalled that he was about to toast with his favorite wine, a Chardonnay Sauvignon, worth over 4 million won per bottle, but now he was in a baby's body. His mother caught his attention when he heard her say he should have some milk. He didn't want it since he knew it was just a cheap formula. But when the bottle got near, he drooled and drank it, the first thing the baby's body couldn't resist. After drinking his milk, the lady carried him and helped him burp. His father kissed him on the cheek, but he was annoyed, thinking that it was so disgusting for 2 men to be affectionate. Collapsing on the best day of his life, becoming a baby, it was all just absurd for him. Though the hardest thing to adapt to was the 2 people with him. It was so cringe-worthy for him to see them being overly friendly. This feeling of having parents he didn't even know was foreign to him. His original parents were too busy working. They didn't have the time to bond at all. His father always told him to take good care of his siblings since he was the eldest. He flinched when he recalled it. He cried very loudly, telling himself it was not the time for sentimentality. His parents were clueless, and his father concluded that he was sleepy after drinking the milk. He didn't want to sleep, but he fell asleep after just a minute, a second thing a baby's body couldn't resist. While he was sleeping, his father told his mother to rest while he made dinner. The lady refused and told him they should do it together, since he also had to go to work soon. But then, Jiseong disagreed. He turned the TV on and told her to relax. After turning on the television, the news was about Samjeon chairman, Jeon Seong-guk's Apple Box bribery scandal. According to the reporter, allegations of bribery had been raised against Samjeon Group's chairman, Jeon Seong-guk. And this afternoon, an investigation was conducted at the prosecutor's office. Plus, Chairman Jeon Seong-guk of Samjeon appeared in person. Seong-guk woke up upon hearing it. He sat up, and his mother was shocked. He watched the news, and he couldn't believe that his grandfather, who had passed away, was now alive. Since he was watching the news, his parents let him sit in front of the television. He was puzzled by the fact that his late grandfather was accused of bribery. He went near the TV. He giggled as he remembered a moment, the year he turned 10 when his grandfather ended up in court for bribing politicians with boxes of apples. Those who feared the growing Samjeon criticized it as a dirty company that resorted to bribery. For him, it's nonsense. He believes that money is power and connections are superpowers. Naively thinking they can become rich, counting each penny they save, that's the thinking only poor couples have. He clearly remembered that on the day his grandfather appeared before prosecutors, the old man had him at 10 years old push his wheelchair. It was staged to evoke public sympathy, but for him, it was like a debut. It was the day he showed the world that he, Jeon Seong-guk, would be next in line after his grandfather and his father. But now, he saw on the news that it was Jeon Tae-guk, his younger brother. He was annoyed watching it, knowing that Tae-guk was a greedy guy. Tae-guk went abroad, claiming to study but just learned about drugs and became a junkie. An arrogant brat who always coveted Seong-guk's position. Becoming a baby wasn't even the main issue for Seong-guk, it's the fact that he had come to the past. He cried, thinking that he was about to lose his destiny, his position, and everything. The night came. Soyoung offered Seong-guk apple juice, but Seong-guk refused to accept it and wanted to tell the lady not to interfere. The lady was worried about him. Jiseong came, very happy as he got so much leftover meat from his boss. Jiseong was a chef at a pork hock restaurant. He told his wife he would cook the meat deliciously, but the lady stopped him and pointed to their son Seong-guk. She informed him that Seong-guk had still been watching the news since he left. According to her, if she turned off or changed the channel, Seong-guk would start crying. Jiseong was smiling as he thought he could make Seong-guk's mood change. He went in front of Seong-guk and played peekaboo with him. Seong-guk held his finger, and he was mad, wanting to tell him to get out of his way. Jiseong was disappointed as he had never made his son smile. Seong-guk was very invested in the news as he wanted to gather as much useful information as he could about the current situation, about his grandfather and Samjeon, and how to return to his original body. Unfortunately, his mother turned off the TV and told him he needed to rest. He started to cry as he wanted the lady to let him go and allow him to watch the news. After all the efforts to secure his position as Samjeon's heir, he could not accept losing everything so pathetically to someone like his younger brother. He was determined to return to his rightful place. Soyoung patted his back, asking him to be a good boy, and promised him they would watch again tomorrow. Right now, Seong-guk felt like he was getting dumber, and he concluded it may be because he's a baby. His emotions were all over the place, and his thoughts were getting shorter. When Soyoung patted him, he unknowingly fell asleep. Knowing that he was just watching television the whole day and wouldn't sleep, Jiseong was worried for his wife, believing that she was having a tough time. The lady then said she was just worried about their son since he still hadn't said his first word despite being almost a year old. She was anxious that she might be raising Seong-guk wrong as an ignorant mother because of the way he was fixated on the news. Jiseong felt pity for her. He hugged her tight and said, "Even if we don't have much time, our love for our son is genuine, right? Don't worry, our son will grow up well. Let's believe in Seong-guk." A few days later, Seong-guk was already hopeless. He had been watching the news for days, overcoming all sorts of interruptions, but he hadn't gained anything useful. The world kept turning as if nothing happened, and he was still trapped in this baby's body. He didn't know what to do anymore. His mother was shocked that he was not watching the news, not knowing he had already given up. The lady carried him, informing him they should go for a walk to buy some dishes at the market and look at flowers on the way back. As they came out, the weather was nice. The landlady of the building was also around as she was heading to work. The landlady informed Soyoung that she was leaving a bit late today. "Well met," she added and left. Soyoung wished her a good day, and Seong-guk noticed that the building owner was a young woman. Meanwhile, they arrived at their destination. The landlady was still around since the place she was heading to passed this way. Soyoung was so happy to share what she would cook for his son. But then it only made Seong-guk annoyed because of her being so talkative. Right now, Seong-guk heard something that clanked. Behind the lady was a construction site. Seong-guk was scared as it turned out that some metals were falling. Soyoung screamed when she saw it. She immediately covered Seong-guk's head, and they were unfortunately struck by the metals. Their landlady saw the scene and immediately ran to them. She kept calling Soyoung, and Soyoung just uttered her son's name. Luckily, Seong-guk was unharmed. Soyoung was bleeding, and she still proclaimed she would protect her son. Seong-guk was trembling. He was afraid that his mother would die because of the accident. Soyoung was immediately rushed to the hospital, while Seong-guk was in the hands of their landlady. The rescuer reported to the doctor that Soyoung injured her head after being hit by falling materials at the construction site. The doctor then declared they would begin the suturing surgery immediately. Upon checking, she was shocked when she found out something. Meanwhile, Soyoung regained consciousness. She first saw her husband, who was worried about her. She got up, still afraid, and asked about Seong-guk. Jiseong was shaking as he replied that Seong-guk was below her. Seong-guk was sunk under the blanket. As it turned out, he was crying. Jiseong carried him and told his wife that their son was safe but might be scared after knowing his mom was in danger. Soyoung then opened her arms and took her son while telling him she's not hurt. She carried him on her shoulder and said, "I'm so glad you're safe, my Seong-guk." Seong-guk was touched. He cried again. He was really scared, and he couldn't believe someone would risk her own life just to save him. Jiseong was smiling, knowing that he had cried his heart out. The lady then asked why she was in a private room. She was worried they could not pay for it. Also, she didn't think her condition was very serious. Jiseong felt shy. He told his wife that she needed absolute rest. Soyoung was still puzzled. It turned out she was pregnant. Soyoung was shocked as she never expected it. Jiseong then moved closer to her face and told her to rest better. They were about to kiss, but a nurse entered, so they were embarrassed. The nurse informed them that visiting hours were almost over for the day. Jiseong then grabbed Seong-guk and left the hospital. "My son, should we head home now?" Jiseong asked. Even though Seong-guk still couldn't talk, he noticed that the bus fare was expensive, so Jiseong decided to just walk back home. Seong-guk was annoyed that his father didn't have money to get home. A poor guy who couldn't even afford a bus ride. But he knew that Jiseong was a father who worked hard every day to support his family, and he had a mother who would risk her life for him. Suddenly, he uttered "Dad" for the first time. Jiseong was surprised. He screamed out of happiness, and Seong-guk, at the same time, accepted the fact that Jiseong and Soyoung were now his parents. 1 week later, Seong-guk's first birthday came. His parents prepared a celebration for him and also wore traditional outfits. His parents adored his cuteness. They took a photo of him, very proud. But Seong-guk was puzzled, showing no emotion. He was mad since, for him, this wasn't the best time for a party. He was aware that his parents struggled to pay hospital bills, even saving on bus fare. Barely scraping by, yet they were throwing a first birthday party. If this was in his previous life, he would have wanted to scold them. But now he understood. He realized that this wasn't something that could be measured by money. It was love, the kind of love worth risking one's life for. This time, he was happy spending time with them. During the past week, while Soyoung was in the hospital, he had made a decision. He had to take action. Realistically, he realized that his parents wouldn't be able to escape poverty easily. Just by looking at them, he could tell they knew nothing about investments or financial planning. They didn't even have extra savings. They were struggling just to get by. And soon, a major economic crisis would hit. He covered his ears as he heard someone knocking on the door. His mother stood up and asked who it was, and they heard it was their landlady, Kim Myeong. Soyoung opened the door, and Myeong then told her she just stopped by as she heard she had already been discharged. She got something from her back. It was a godmother's proposal, and she asked Soyoung if she had ever thought about letting her son become a child actor. A few days later, Soyoung went to the building where the audition would happen. Soyoung was staring at the building, the same as Seong-guk. Seong-guk was glad that the building was decent enough. However, Soyoung was hesitant. She proclaimed that it might be a mistake for her to come. Seong-guk suddenly screamed. He disagreed with his mother. He wanted to grab this opportunity for their family. Fortunately, Soyoung noticed he wanted to go in, so she entered the building and headed to the 11th floor where the audition was happening. A few days ago, Jiseong and Soyoung were shocked when Myeong offered them the proposal. According to Myeong, their company recently took on a big corporation's TV commercial. They were holding auditions for an important role. She stared at Seong-guk, stating that he's adorable and seems talented, which is why she wanted the parents to try it out. Right now, Soyoung was already in front of an elevator. She was smiling when she noticed her son chuckling. It turned out that Seong-guk was just very happy thinking that some people were just meant to succeed. He knew that this was his chance to make money, not just for himself, but also for his parents. Since he was little, he had been surrounded by cameras, so makeup and camera work were just basic stuff for him. That's why people used to call him a chaebol, who could easily be an actor. He was planning to breeze through this audition and sweep up all the prize money and guarantees. After that, he wanted to reinvest the money. He and Soyoung were startled when someone called them, asking them if they weren't getting on. Soyoung let the old woman enter first. This old woman was also carrying a baby with her. It turned out she was just the nanny. Together with her was the baby's mother. She was annoyed, saying she was in a hurry, but her way was blocked. At this moment, Seong-guk was irritated with the kid in front of him, knowing this kid would be his opponent. Soyoung was smiling, telling the old woman her baby was so pretty. The old woman then replied that her little master's name was Jae-hee. The lady with them suddenly looked at Soyoung and said, "You're here for the audition too, right? Are you trying to scout out the competition?" Soyoung panicked as she said no. The lady smirked and proclaimed her son Jae-hee would be the one to win the competition. Seong-guk felt insulted. He madly stared at the lady, and the lady was shocked at how he reacted. Seong-guk was mad at the fact that this lady was looking down on people just because she was wrapped in luxury brands and dragging around a nanny like a servant. A typical rich family madam. After a minute, they finally reached the 11th floor. Seong-guk, this time, became more competitive. The audition started. Seong-guk and his mother were patiently waiting for their turn to be called. Seong-guk knew this was just a simple camera test, checking if the kids looked good on screen and if they could do basic acting. But with the hot lights and an unfamiliar space, he knew it was tough for babies to handle. After a few minutes of waiting, number 10, Lee Jae-hee, was called for his turn, and this was also what Seong-guk was waiting for. At this moment, he heard that the mother of Jae-hee was the madam of Deokpung paper. Seong-guk smirked when he heard Jae-hee cry on the stage. The assistant director told Jae-hee's mother it was hard to continue when the baby was crying. The lady was mad and said her son would stop crying soon, so they must wait. She got even madder when the assistant told her more babies were waiting in line. The main director didn't have time to wait, so he called the next contestant Seong-guk. The director then told his assistant to escort the madam and child outside to help them calm down. The lady was shaking in anger, but she didn't have a choice but to follow the rules. Finally, the time for Seong-guk came. His name was called again, and his mother immediately let him sit on the stage. He was behaving and heard the assistant inform him they should now begin the audition. Soyoung was smiling at him. But the lady came back and pushed her away as she also wanted to see Seong-guk's audition. Seong-guk was glad that the lady returned, and he wanted to see her reaction while watching him do great on the camera. He wanted to show her why he succeeded and why her kid wouldn't. He was determined to prove she was wrong about him. He widely smiled while on stage, and everyone, including the director and his mother, were thrilled to watch him. The director then asked for his camera and immediately took a photo with a smile on his face. He shot a side-angle shot of Seong-guk in a cute pose and with a prop great. The director was satisfied with him and even proclaimed he was a genius. Of course, the madam was envious and annoyed after hearing Seong-guk being acknowledged. After the photo shoot, Soyoung carried her son, and the director then declared that the casting process should start immediately. Soyoung was shocked as she never thought her son would be acknowledged as a genius. The director approached her, telling her his name, Kwak Junha, the CF director. They shook hands while Junha kept telling her she had an incredibly talented son. "Shall we proceed with the contract right away? Do you have any contract terms in mind?" he asked. Soyoung was stuttering while asking him if her son really had a talent. Junha then replied that he got a little too excited and rushed things. But of course, he was sure that Seong-guk was overflowing with talent. He noticed that Seong-guk was not just a natural in front of the camera, but also reacted to his every direction. He felt like Seong-guk understood every word he said. Seong-guk was so proud of himself. Junha then proclaimed he was looking forward to working with Seong-guk on so many projects. The madam suddenly caused a commotion and asked Junha what he was doing. "The final audition hasn't even taken place yet. You're acting like the winner has already been decided before it's over. How is this fair?" she said angrily. Junha didn't show any emotion, but Soyoung was scared of how the madam reacted. The madam screamed, proclaiming she refused to accept anyone but Jae-hee as the winner. Meanwhile, the final audition was about to start. The candidates were only Jeon Seong-guk and Lee Jae-hee. The parents, including Jae-hee's nanny, were waiting. The madam's aura was still angry, while Soyoung was smiling as she never thought her son would reach the final round. She saw many beautiful and smart kids who joined the audition, but her son still looked the best, which she never expected. Anyway, maybe it's because the tension is wearing off, she muttered. The nanny suddenly whispered to her, asking if she was fine. She then replied that she needed to use the restroom. Lucky for her, the nanny permitted her to leave Seong-guk with her and quickly go to the restroom. The nanny carried both kids, and she was thrilled, saying that the more she looked at Seong-guk, the more she could see how charming he was. Her madam heard what she said, and it only made the lady furious. Are you kidding me? I'm already annoyed that our Jae-hee is being compared to some nobody, and you still don't get it? Do you want to lose your job? The lady said in a loud voice. The nanny didn't respond. She received more scolding from her madam, and listening to the lady's tone of voice made Seong-guk annoyed and wanted to slap her. The assistant director suddenly came out and asked about Seong-guk's guardian. The madam then informed him that Soyoung left for a moment, so he could now speak freely. Of course, Seong-guk was listening to their conversation. The lady stated that she only entered the audition for her son Jae-hee to have a fun experience. And she asked if it was really fair for Jae-hee to compete against some random kid. She also claimed that Jae-hee was already set to win. Seong-guk was shocked upon hearing it. He madly stared at the assistant director as he found out that the audition was a typical case of corruption. The CF model had already been chosen in advance. The audition was just for a show to give their child a grand debut using the other kids as mere extras, a rigged scam. Ma'am, please hold back for now. If the director catches on, it'll be trouble, the assistant said. And the madam replied, the director doesn't know who our family is. This was all decided by higher-ups. What can a mere director do? The assistant then proclaimed that even the higher-ups couldn't overrule the director, and he asked the lady if she was well prepared for the final audition. The lady then replied yes, and that they had hired a private tutor for practice. The assistant then said that Seong-guk was obviously no match for Jae-hee, who had been training. He then approached Jae-hee by teaching him a line. He commanded the kid to repeat after him. After a few minutes, the final round began. Both kids were on the stage, and they heard the director instruct that the baby who could naturally pronounce the given lines and act accordingly would be the final winner. Soyoung was cheering for Seong-guk. Seong-guk was calm as he knew he could do it. Junha then declared to start the filming. The assistant called the kids and told them to look at him. Seong-guk followed the instructions while thinking that responding to the filming directions would count toward the score. In times like this, he believed he had to position himself well for the camera, so he went straight toward the camera and the director. His opponent Jae-hee headed to his mother, so Junha decided to put Jae-hee aside for now and test Seong-guk first. He then commanded his assistant to give the line, and of course, the assistant was confident that Seong-guk couldn't make it since he only practiced with Jae-hee earlier. He was standing in front of Seong-guk, believing that the kid knew nothing and was bound to fail. He then told Seong-guk to repeat after him, and Seong-guk widely smiled as he repeated the lines. The assistant was dumbfounded. Junha, on the other hand, already expected Seong-guk to do great in the final round. The madam interrupted and asked the director to let her son try it too. Junha was annoyed to see how the madam carried her own son. But at the same time, he agreed to let Jae-hee try it. However, Jae-hee couldn't repeat the words that the assistant taught him. He even cried very loudly, and the madam was embarrassed and said, "We practiced so much." Junha was puzzled. The assistant then intervened by declaring they should now wrap up the audition. Seong-guk was very confident that the victory now belonged to him. However, when the winner was declared, he and his mother were silent as Lee Jae-hee was declared the final audition winner. Soyoung told the assistant director that there might be something wrong. She insisted her son clearly did well, but the assistant told her that being cute doesn't make her son a child actor. The madam approached Soyoung and said, "Aiming for the win with nothing but cuteness. Can't seem to know your place, huh?" Soyoung was annoyed at her for insulting her son. The lady didn't stop and added that for a lower-class kid, second place isn't bad. She told Soyoung her son still did a great job, and she then walked away with the nanny, who felt guilty. Soyoung was shaking in anger, as she couldn't accept that someone would say such awful things in front of Seong-guk. Then Seong-guk squeezed her, wanting to calm her down. He smirked as he believed this was all going according to his plan. And if his calculations were correct, he knew that the director would approach them. Fortunately, after a few seconds, Junha rushed to them. He called Soyoung and invited her to have a talk. Earlier, the moment Seong-guk heard that Jae-hee had already been decided as the winner, he drastically revised his strategy. This kind of corruption, he had seen it once or twice in his past life. There's no beating money when it comes to getting positions. And there's no need to get involved in a fight he can't win. As a businessman, he should aim higher. That is a connection. Junha was smiling while asking the lady to have a conversation with him. Soyoung was puzzled, and Junha knew she was shocked. He apologized to her, and he concluded that the audition was rigged by the higher-ups. He rubbed Seong-guk's hair and also apologized to him for unintentionally making him see something unsightly. For now, Seong-guk's mother, could you come to the commercial shoot in a week? Junha asked, and Seong-guk knew this would be the start. What he wanted wasn't some one-time commercial model gig. His plan was to have a connection with the director, which he had just done. Then he would consistently get child actor jobs and become a child star, then become rich. The important thing for him was to secure a steady and reliable source of income. He wanted the madam to do whatever she wanted with the lousy commercial while he would reel in Junha and sit on a pile of money. With that money, he knew he would feed his household, his own and new family. Director, why do we need to come to the commercial shoot? Soyoung asked. And as per Junha, they usually prepare 1 or 2 backup models for baby commercials since the baby might suddenly get sick. Also, he's not very confident about the winner. He was begging Soyoung to give him a chance, and the lady was shocked, smiled, then said that she was hoping it wouldn't be too hard for her son Seong-guk. Of course, Seong-guk was very excited and really wanted to go. Because of his reaction, Junha said he seemed to understand everything. He also proclaimed that if all child actors were like Seong-guk, his job would be much easier. Junha then handed his business card to Soyoung and asked for her contact information. A week later, Soyoung and Seong-guk went to the commercial shoot near Seoul. Soyoung was speechless when she saw the place in the forest. While looking at the surroundings, the assistant director called her. Seong-guk was still annoyed at him, knowing he was a corrupt assistant director. He was glaring at the assistant, and the assistant noticed it. The assistant escorted Soyoung to the waiting room and informed the lady that he was told by the director that she would be with his son as a backup model. He led the way, and along the way, Seong-guk saw something that surprised him. It was the Samjeon third-generation washing machine, the so-called Samjeon spin cycle. It was a huge hit with its innovative spin cycle system. Thanks to that, Samjeon Electronics' stock price went up, and his grandfather was so happy. When he saw the washing machine, he got an idea about what the commercial would be. Suddenly, the madam came and angrily asked why they were also around. The assistant was about to explain, but the madam was furious and said, "Why are these rejects here?" Since she was mad, Soyoung was also angry as she replied that the director asked them to come as backup models. And she bravely told the lady to stop with the nasty talk in front of the children. Seong-guk was so proud of her. The assistant then explained further that there was a backup model just in case Jae-hee wasn't feeling well, or if they needed a substitute. The madam crossed her arms and proclaimed that Jae-hee didn't need anything like a backup since the commercial wasn't that hard. Also, she was confident that her son was in top condition. But when Seong-guk looked at Jae-hee, he noticed that the kid didn't seem like he was in good condition. The madam told them to disappear, but Lim Seami, an actress, came and asked them why it was very noisy. She instantly saw the babies and asked if both babies were the ones shooting with them today. The assistant replied yes, and introduced the kids to her. Seami then approached Jae-hee first, but Jae-hee cried in fear, which made the actress disappointed. Seami then walked toward Seong-guk, believing that Jae-hee wasn't interested in her at all. Seong-guk widely smiled at her to build a connection. Seami rubbed Seong-guk's hair, and she was thrilled when Seong-guk allowed her and even held her wrist. She then told Soyoung that she had never seen such a friendly baby before. Soyoung then proudly replied that her son was quite affectionate. Surprisingly, Seami told the assistant director that she found Seong-guk cuter, so she wanted to have a shoot with him instead. The madam was dumbfounded and suddenly pulled the actress. The actress was startled. She pulled her hand back. The madam then told Seami not to jump out suddenly and say such annoying things. "Excuse me, who are you?" "What are you?" Seami asked. The madam was about to reply, but someone touched her shoulder, so she looked behind to check. Seami smiled and uttered, "Vice Chairman." She went near him and asked why he had come. The man then said, "How could I not come when we're shooting a commercial for our new product? It's a pleasure to meet you." Seong-guk was too stunned to speak as it turned out that the man was his father from his previous life, Jeon Seong-guk, vice chairman of Samjeon Company. While not quite the giant his father, Chairman Jeon Seong-guk, Jae-hyung was a capable vice chairman in his own right. He led the company's restructuring and organizational improvements during crises and was called a future-oriented executive for his generous investments in specialized fields. A capable and successful Samjeon vice chairman through and through. But as a man, husband, and father, he was the worst. Staring at him talking with Seong made Seong-guk irritated. He felt disgusted as it brought back his memories of his father. His father always had numerous mistresses, but when he was 10, his father introduced him to one in particular. That lady was smiling at him and asked him to take care of her. That was his father's 9th mistress, whom he erased from his mind the moment he saw her. That woman was also Lim Seong. At this moment, Seong pointed at him, telling Jae-hyung that he would be the kid she wanted to film with her. Jae-hyung moved toward him, saying that he looked like a smart boy. The vice chairman greeted him, but he didn't like his father's aura. The VC's subordinate called him, asking him to head in. Jae-hyung laughed and said, "Is it that time already? It's a shame, but I must go." He then looked at the madam, telling her he would be counting on her for the shoot. The madam was annoyed. She was stuttering while saying, "Yes, I'll work hard." Seong-guk, at the same time, smirked, thinking that it must be hard to openly defy Samjeon's vice chairman. Also, he knew his father's real identity very well. Sometimes a playboy hanging out with women, but when it mattered, a charismatic corporate leader. That was his father. Jae-hyung rubbed his hair, and also told him he was counting on him too. He then walked away while Seong-guk stared at him, leaving the area. He felt a bit sad, but he told himself he's going to live a different life from his past one. He also had a real family now, and he was willing to protect them, whatever happened. He was dreaming of creating a company greater than Samjeon. He smiled, believing that he and his previous father would meet again at the right time. "All right, everyone, we're starting the shoot," the assistant director said. He informed everyone to get ready, since the director was coming. The madam walked away to rest, leaving Soyoung and her maid behind. Child actors were told to stay on standby. Seong-guk, at this moment, was smiling, accepting the fact that the past is past, so he must focus on what's important now. The commercial concept was simple. In a picturesque forest cabin, a mother and her baby do laundry. The mother washes dad's sweat-stained white shirt in the Samjeon spin cycle. The baby happily rubs its cheek against dad's dazzlingly white shirt, thanks to the spin cycle, and calls out. The commercial ends with the refreshed mother and child and the gleaming spin cycle. In the past life of Seong-guk, this commercial was a huge hit. It won the year's advertising award for its excellent planning, and the child actor starring in it shot to stardom. So, it meant this commercial should be his now. When the shoot started, the first child who acted together with Seong was Jae-hee. However, Seong was disappointed since Jae-hee could not do what was on the script. "What's wrong with this baby?" she angrily said. Jae-hee was crying so loudly. He kept hitting people who tried to get close to him. Soyoung was confused about why Jae-hee was acting this way when he seemed to be so gentle. Seong-guk, on the other hand, smirked, thinking that this was all according to his genius plan. It turned out he gave a brilliant tip to the kid, who was suffering under his mother's pressure. If Jae-hee resisted with all his might whenever Lim Seong approached, he'd be able to go home early. Seong-guk didn't realize Jae-hee could understand his hint, but he knew it was because Jae-hee was just a baby. Somehow, they managed to communicate. Since Jae-hee could not act right, Junha declared they would shoot with the backup actor, who was Seong-guk. The madam behind him was shocked and annoyed. "What are you talking about? My child won the audition," the madam said. Junha then reminded her that they had been stuck for an hour now, so they should find a solution. He complained that Jae-hee wouldn't listen, and he kept smacking the actress's face. He reminded the madam that they needed to finish the shoot within the day. The madam then angrily shouted at him that he was being ridiculous, and she questioned him if he knew who she was. She called someone over the phone while stating that their chairman, Deokpung, adored Jae-hee so much. Seong-guk was focused on the 90s brick phone the lady was holding, as it had been a while since he last saw this kind of phone. "I'm going to call right now and have all of you replaced," the madam shouted. She was very mad, but she was dumbfounded when Seong slapped her hard. Everyone was shocked, including Seong-guk. The madam was stuttering. She was in disbelief that someone had hit her. "What do you think you're doing?" she asked. Seong smiled at her and replied that she really hated when people who weren't even staff disrupted the set. "I get that you're full of yourself as Deokpung Paper's wife," she added. Junha clasped his hands while suggesting that the madam take her child and go back home. He was startled when Seong looked at him, and told him they should start the shoot again. She pointed at Seong-guk and declared she wanted to shoot with him. Of course, Seong-guk already expected this to happen. Soyoung was speechless. The madam got angrier when Yunha told everyone to stand by. How dare she push my Jaehee aside and let that kid film instead? What can a low-class child like that possibly do? Soyoung was covering Seong-guk's ears, so he couldn't hear the madam's mocking. The madam was confident that the shoot would be a total disaster since the chosen child actor would now be Seong-guk. On camera, the red light was one of the things that haunted Seong-guk to death in his past life. A confident performance in front of the camera was one of his greatest weapons. So, he knew exactly what to do in front of this thing. The shoot started, and they didn't face any problems at all because Seong-guk did it well. Seemi was satisfied with his performance. He even uttered "daddy" with a wide smile while touching the cloth props. Junha and his assistant were thrilled to watch the cuteness of Seong-guk. Keep the main camera steady. Focus all other angles on Seong-guk, Junha proclaimed, and his assistant gladly followed his order. Seong-guk continued what he was doing while the camera focused on him. Junha was impressed to see Seong-guk's gaze locked straight onto the camera in front of him. Seemi was also in disbelief at the fact that Seong-guk could go with the flow. She was too focused on Seong-guk, but she heard the assistant calling her name and asking her to hold Seong-guk and shout, "Laundry is done." Seemi followed the given instructions. She was smiling just like Seong-guk. She raised her arm while saying, "Trust Samjeon's spin cycle for spotless clothes. Try it now." Seong-guk copied how she raised her arm, and they then smiled at the camera. Junha then cut the shoot and acknowledged the scene. After the shoot, the madam complained again that Seong-guk was used as the commercial model instead of her son just because Seong-guk could act cute. What do you expect? Jaehee couldn't even film properly, Junha said with his arms crossed. While the madam was mocking, Soyoung was embarrassed, and Seong-guk, at the same time, felt exhausted. Seemi touched Soyoung's arm with her elbow and told her not to mind the madam. That madam, can scream all she wants. It won't change anything. What's she gonna do about it? Her kid can't act. It's as simple as that, she stated. Soyoung laughed, and she now felt relieved. Seemi then moved her face closer to Seong-guk and proclaimed that their Seong-guk is absolutely amazing. And she added that she couldn't believe they wrapped up filming in just 2 takes. Don't make me laugh. Do you have any idea how much money I spent on this crappy commercial? The madam shouted. She looked at the assistant director and reminded him that he also got a cut of the money she paid. Junha was mad because his assistant had taken a bribe. He squeezed his head and told him they should have a little talk later on. None of these matters. You really think I'd keep clinging to some garbage commercial like this? The madam angrily stated. She swore to sue everyone, and she then left while her nanny followed her. In his mind, Seong-guk thought the madam was so pathetic. Since the madam left, Junha approached Soyoung and apologized for Jaehee's mother's behavior. Soyoung then replied, "No problem at all," and she knew Junha also worked really hard. Junha was very grateful, stating that if it weren't for Seong-guk, he wouldn't have known what to do. Of course, Seong-guk was so proud of himself. He was grinning widely when Junha informed Soyoung that the payment for Seong-guk's performance would be handled properly through the company. Then, should we head home, Seong-guk? Soyoung asked, and Seong-guk was very energetic as he replied, "Awu." Seemi was looking at them, as if something was on her mind. Seong-guk's mother, "Would it be all right if I gave you a ride home in my van?" she asked. Soyoung agreed, and while on their way, Seong-guk fell asleep. Seemi was smiling as she watched how Seong-guk slept soundly. Soyoung then said that her son must be really tired. She then thanked Seemi for giving them a ride in such a fancy car. Seemi then told her, "It's nothing," and she added that she should be the one thanking Seong-guk. Soyoung was in disbelief that a known actress was now grateful to her son. As for Seemi, Seong-guk was an outstanding lead actor, and because of him, she got to head home early. She also stated that she noticed how Seong-guk's eyes followed the camera's red light, as if he understood the camera work. On top of that, Seemi noticed that he also synchronized his acting with his timing. Whether it was intentional or not, he even adjusted to her best camera angle. She didn't realize that Seong-guk intentionally did it since he knew her right side looked better on screen than the left. For Seemi, Seong-guk grasped the flow of the shoot and delivered the perfect performance to dominate the scene. In her eyes, Seong-guk was already a fully fledged actor. Soyoung was shocked upon hearing the compliment from the actress. She was speechless because she never thought her son was a genius. Seami then offered a proposal to her. At the same time, Seong-guk woke up and heard Seami's offer. Seami was smiling widely while stating her exciting offer to Soyoung. Both Soyoung and Seong-guk were shocked upon hearing it. Seong-guk smirked, thrilled by the fact that the offer was a big hit for him. The next day, Myoung, their landlady, came to their apartment and handed them the payment for Seong-guk's acting. The payment amounted to 4 million won. According to her, the original appearance fee was 3 million, but the director pushed hard, so they added a bit more. Seong-guk was very satisfied. He now believes that child acting really was the right choice for him. He was excited, wondering how much he could make as a baby. 4 million won was enough for startup capital. He deduced that he would become rich if he used this money to invest in stocks or gold. Soyoung, it's 4 million won. I've never held this much money before, Jiseong uttered gladly. But then, Soyoung didn't show any happiness. He asked her what was wrong. Soyoung approached Myoung. She showed a card to Myoung and informed her that this card was given by Seami last night. Seong-guk was staring at the card and recalled that this was from the offer Seami had made yesterday. Myoung was shocked while checking it. It was the Sinsung Entertainment Agency card. Soyoung concluded that Seami must have taken a real liking to Seong-guk and wanted him to join Sinsung Entertainment as an exclusive child actor. Seong-guk crossed his arms while thinking. Jiseong was also surprised that Seami wanted to turn their son into a celebrity. As per Soyoung, she didn't really know what Seami wanted for Seong-guk. She added that she wanted what's best for her son and that the offer was unexpected. Myoung was thinking about it. She had doubts, so she told Soyoung not to worry, as she was willing to look into it. Myoung had heard of Sinsung Entertainment. She decided to find out who the CEO was and what kind of treatment their actors received. Soyoung was very happy that Myoung decided to help her. Seong-guk, at the same time, was shocked that Myoung was really going that far for them. Myoung stood and said, "Don't feel uneasy, just relax. And congratulations on Seong-guk's commercial debut." She also informed the family that the ad would air for the first time in 2 weeks. When she left the house, Soyoung chased her. Myoung asked her if she still felt uneasy, but it turned out that she was just wondering why Myoung was helping them so much. Myoung was shocked by her question. Soyoung added that Myoung recognized Seong-guk's talent and always stepped up to help them. Myoung was silent for a moment. Then, after a few seconds, she told Soyoung that she just wanted to support her. She informed Soyoung that she grew up alone and went through a lot of hardships. She saved every bit she could on food and clothes to buy a building. Then Soyoung and her husband moved in, and seeing them as a couple working hard together was so inspiring to her. She wanted to cheer Soyoung on. In the end, it was just her being nosy, so she asked Soyoung for a favor, not to feel pressured at all. Soyoung was speechless. She was touched and suddenly asked Myoung for permission to call her Uni. She told her she wanted them to be like family. She wanted to cook for her if it was okay with Myoung. Myoung smiled, thinking that Soyoung and her family were such warm-hearted people. She agreed to Soyoung's favor. Soyoung was blushing, and while they were talking, Seong-guk was listening to them. He was smiling, and his father was confused about what he was doing behind the door. 2 weeks later, Jiseong was in the restaurant where he worked. He was very happy while working. They brought Seong-guk with them, and the one who babysat him was the restaurant owner, Park Won. He was carrying Seong-guk, but Seong-guk didn't like it at all. The old man decided to close his store early so they could watch Seong-guk's commercial. Park Won squeezed Seong-guk's face and replied that he also really wanted to see their Seong-guk's debut commercial. Despite being annoyed, Seong-guk cooperated, knowing that they owed Park Won a favor. Myoung also came, and Soyoung was glad she had made it in time. Myoung chuckled, then said, "Feels like we're all watching a movie together." Jiseong then called them, informing them that the ad was starting. He turned on the television and watched Seami and Seong-guk's advertisement. Soyoung and Myoung were thrilled to see the cuteness of Seong-guk. The ad continued to play, including how Seong-guk uttered "daddy." It gave them a silhouette. Soyoung was teary-eyed. Park Won, at the same time, clapped and acknowledged that the ad was perfect. Myoung also said, "It's incredible." Seong-guk was very proud of himself when he heard Myoung say that the ad could win an award this year if things went well. Jiseong suddenly hugged him tightly and told him he was so proud of him. "How did such a beautiful, wonderful child end up as my son?" he added. The telephone rang. Park Won answered immediately and informed the caller that his store was already closed. However, he was shocked when the caller turned out to be the director of Seong-guk's commercial, Junha. He called as he heard Soyoung, Jiseong, Park Won, and Myeong had gathered in one place to watch the ad together with Seong-guk. According to him, something urgent had come up, and he needed to discuss it with Seong-guk's family. Behind him were handsome gentlemen. The next day, Jiseong and Soyoung came to Junha's office with their son. Junha then greeted them, and he asked Seong-guk if he was doing well. Seong-guk uttered director, while pointing his finger at Junha. Junha was surprised that Seong-guk was speaking even more than before. Soyoung then replied that it looked like her son was at the stage where he was starting to talk fluently. She also noticed that her son babbles all day long. Junha smiled widely, as he concluded that they could now start giving Seong-guk longer lines. Seong-guk liked it very much, believing that he would soon be reciting his lines like a pro. Junha was impressed by Seong-guk's development. Now he told the parents to sit, and he started discussing the reason for his call. According to him, they wanted to discuss producing a program with Seong-guk as the main star. The program was called Just Baby, a childcare variety show where a 5-member famous idol group would live with Seong-guk. The parents were surprised when they discovered the group that would accompany their son. Taeyong, the leader of the group, just came and told the parents that they were looking forward to working with them all. He was wearing a mask, but the redness in his face while staring at Seong-guk was still visible. He removed his mask and showed his handsome face. Soyoung was thrilled. She screamed while her face blushed. Taeyong then concluded that she was familiar with their group. Soyoung then answered that she had seen them on TV a few times. Taeyong then told her that they still had a long way to go in many aspects, but they were working hard to become the nation's top idol group. Soyoung believed in them, knowing they could sing and dance flawlessly. Her husband, Jiseong, felt jealous seeing Soyoung showing interest in other men besides him. Seong-guk made fun of his father, knowing he was jealous. Once filming begins, you'll get to meet the rest of the members too, Junha said. That sounds wonderful. Right away, Soyoung replied. She suddenly pouted when she realized that it was a bit too much pressure for her son. Seong-guk right then wanted to tell her not to worry, as he wouldn't forget she chose him over an idol. I believe Seong-guk is the key to this show's success. He already seems to understand conversations and can empathize, Junha said, which made Seong-guk even more proud of himself. Junha added that Seong-guk had a clean facial expression and great camera focus. He couldn't imagine anyone else as the main star. Seong-guk agreed with Junha. He smiled widely as he remembered that the upcoming show he was about to be included in was the show he had seen in his past life. A unique mix of a baby and an idol group, it captivated viewers instantly. Viewers cheered for idols struggling with childcare. In the end, it became a national sensation and started the childcare variety show genre. Seong-guk believed this was the perfect program for his goal of becoming a superstar child actor and amassing great wealth. At that moment in the discussion, Jiseong felt sad. He told Junha he had some concerns. He was smiling while telling the director that his son might grow up differently from normal kids if Seong-guk kept appearing on TV. He proclaimed he wanted his son to grow up as a regular child, loved by his family, instead of a celebrity. Junha didn't know what to say. He was speechless. He was thinking about what to say, but Taeyong told Jiseong that he understood how he felt because he had been a child actor himself. He was aware that being on TV inevitably meant growing up under the public's watchful eyes. But he had no regrets at all. He had a talent for broadcasting and became an idol. He was also thankful for an environment that let his talent shine, and he made it so far. How about trusting your son? He asked. Jiseong was at a loss for words. He was also told by Taeyong to give his son, who knew how to shine, a chance to shine. Seong-guk was smiling at his father, who thought he was more beautiful and talented than anyone. Jiseong now understood the benefits of the opportunity. He shook hands with Junha and asked him to take good care of his son. Korea's first childcare reality show, Just Baby. Until the first day of filming. D12, Clause 4, the contract. D5, concept shooting was a piece of cake for Seong-guk. And finally, the legendary D0. The first filming began, and the Just group introduced themselves. Leader, Taeyong. He was with Lucas, Jaehyun, Beomseon, and Michael. Seong-guk and his parents came to the shoot. As expected, Soyoung was thrilled again when she saw the group of men. Seeing her blush made Jiseong annoyed. Starting today, we'll be filming at Just Storm, Junha said. He also told everyone that the network had high expectations for this program, so he was hoping everyone would focus and do their best. Seong-guk, at this time, was focusing on the just group members as it turned out he had met all of them in his past life. One was the Samjeon CF model, and one was the Samjeon exclusive idol turned actor. They had once greeted him in his previous life. He was sure these guys were the ones performing at their company events. Michael approached him and was about to touch his head while saying, "Not so cute, huh?" Seong-guk pushed him away as he was annoyed that he had dared to try touching him carelessly. Michael was shocked by Seong-guk's behavior. His hand hurt. Taeyong, behind him, was shocked, asking him if he smoked and hadn't washed his hands. He scolded him for trying to touch the kid with a dirty hand. Jiseong was also worried about his son. Seong-guk, on the other hand, was annoyed as he believed Michael was a Korean-American punk who was still a troublemaker, just like in his previous life. Now he told himself he would take control of the program from now on by crafting a fitting and believable narrative for each character. The other members of the group approached Seong-guk, but Seong-guk smiled at them. Michael then smirked, wanting to tell his group to wait and see. After a few minutes, Michael was thinking that the organizers were making artists babysit, so he would create a scene worthy of variety shows. He was holding a bowl and ketchup. He opened it, and it turned out to be a sauce. He put it in the bowl, which was Seong-guk's food, while thinking that it was now Seong-guk's turn to suffer. At this moment, the installation of all observation cameras was completed, and Junha declared they should clear out. The night came, and the shoot had started. However, everyone didn't know what to do, but they were aware that they should only act naturally, yet they didn't know how to start with so many cameras around. Lucas then said they should make dinner, since he felt hungry. Jaehyun then replied that he didn't know how to cook, so he was told to rest instead. Taeyong then realized they should feed Seong-guk his baby food too. Michael then interfered, informing everyone he had already taken care of it. He was holding Seong-guk's food, the one he prepared with hot sauce. "Oh, what's this, Michael? You've been annoying all day, and now you want to help," Taeyong said with crossed arms. Michael then permitted him to say what he wanted. "I'll feed this little guy," he said. Seong-guk was annoyed at him, believing that there was something wrong. Michael sat beside him, informing him that the food was made by his mother. He then grabbed the spoon and asked Michael to eat first before him. Taeyong was smiling, asking him if he was sharing his food with Michael. Of course, Michael refused to taste it. Still, Seong-guk was forcing him by moving the food near his mouth. "What are you doing, Michael?" "Seong-guk is waiting," Taeyong said, and Michael angrily replied, "Why should I eat baby food?" Taeyong decided to taste the food since Michael wouldn't. He felt disgusted after tasting it. He vomited, and Jaehyun asked him what was wrong. Seong-guk was mad upon confirming that Michael did something to his food. His aura was too scary, making Michael terrified. Taeyong then proclaimed that Seong-guk's food tasted like hot sauce. Since it was baby food, he concluded that something wasn't right. He accused Michael, and Michael didn't lie and instantly admitted he mixed some hot sauce into the baby food, as it was boring for him to just watch a baby, which was why he wanted to play a prank. "It'll be better on TV too, won't it? Don't you know anything about variety shows?" he added. Jaehyun was trembling in anger and said, "Whether it's a show or not, there are lines you shouldn't cross." He attacked Michael and asked him what he would do if something bad happened to Seong-guk. Seong-guk was so impressed by Jaehyun's behavior. He was shocked when Taeyong kneeled in front of him and said sorry about Michael's immaturity. "Oh my God, why would you do that to a baby? He can't even understand what we're saying," Michael said. Taeyong was already annoyed at him. He told him that Seong-guk was smart and understood everything. He commanded him to apologize properly, whether Seong-guk could understand him or not. Seong-guk was amazed watching the potential of the group. He laughed, thinking he would guide everyone properly from now on. 2 weeks later, Soyoung and Jiseong were shocked when Myoung went to their apartment and informed them that the ratings of last Friday's first episode of Just Baby were tallied at 20%. Soyoung then proclaimed they enjoyed watching the show because Seong-guk was in it, and Jiseong believed that a 20% rating was amazing. Myoung then said it was beyond amazing, as it was incredible since MVS's flagship variety show only got around 15%. She informed the parents that the director had already contacted her, saying it had been picked up for a regular slot. She congratulated Seong-guk, and Seong-guk was crossing his arms, very proud of himself, thinking that with him in charge, this level of success was only natural. But he couldn't be satisfied with just this. His goals were money, success, becoming a chaebol, and being at the top. He suddenly laughed while thinking about his genius plan, without knowing that Myeong was thinking of him as an unusual child in many ways. Right now, Soyoung realized there was something she needed to ask Myeong. Myeong was shocked when Soyoung informed her that someone from Sinsung Entertainment had come to their house a few days ago. She was congratulated on the show's success by her son and even received a basket of fruit. They were informed that CEO Shin Songjung would like to meet with them. They were welcome to visit the agency when they had time. What should we do? We should go, right? Soyoung asked. According to Myeong, she looked into Sinsung Entertainment like she had mentioned before. She found out that the company certainly seemed to have a lot of influence in the entertainment industry, but there were many negative rumors about the company and its CEO. There was even talk about connections to organized crime. Both parents were dumbfounded upon hearing it. Should we go anyway? Myeong asked. She said it was difficult to refuse an invitation from CEO Shin, so she wanted to go and hear what the CEO had to say. If it didn't feel right, they could firmly reject him and leave. At this moment, Songguk was thinking about Sinsung Entertainment and its CEO. He felt like he had heard the name before. He was shocked when he realized who it was. He was rattled and wanted them to stop going, as he now knew what was with the CEO. The day came. Soyoung and Myeong went to Shin Songjung, the CEO of Sinsung Entertainment. Songguk was sure that this guy was someone who shouldn't be entangled with through the contracts. Songjung happily welcomed them and asked them to feel free to make themselves at home as if it was their own place. Myeong then thanked him for the invitation, and she immediately asked why he wanted to see them. Songjung then replied that he wanted to discuss something good for Songguk. Songguk was annoyed hearing the CEO claiming him. He was kicking the air, making Soyoung wonder what happened to him. Myeong, at the same time, asked Songjung what he meant by something good, and as per Songjung, he was talking about a contract, an exclusive contract, to be precise. It was about Songguk becoming a partner with Sinsung Entertainment, the top agency in Korea's entertainment industry, the top agency of the country's entertainment industry. He offered Songguk a 10-year exclusive contract. Soyoung was shocked while Songguk was thinking about it. He mentioned the actors Jang Donggun and Lim Seonmi, who were part of his entertainment company. He informed Myeong and Soyoung that they highly value Songguk's talent especially, so they prepared favorable contract terms. Myeong then checked the terms, and Songguk also took a look at them. Myeong was shocked when she saw something unpleasant. She was about to complain, but Songjung talked first, telling her that it was a 10-year exclusive contract with a 70/30th split of profit, and that 70% would belong to him. Songguk didn't like it at all, believing it was practically a slave contract. Now he concluded that Songjung wished to force an exploitative contract on a rising newcomer like him, a method of sucking actors dry to the bone. He smirked, realizing that this old man was still the same person in his previous life. In his past life, Shin Songjung had close ties with Samjeon. More precisely, he had a deep connection with Songguk's past father, Vice Chairman Jeon Jaehyung. Jaehyung got to know Shin Songjung through Lim Seonmi. He funneled Samjeon's ads to Sinsung Entertainment, and Shin Songjung showed loyalty to him by sending his celebrities to Samjeon events. Eventually, he ended up in jail for threatening and assaulting his own artists. I, Shin Songjung, have been in this business for over 10 years, but I've never seen a child actor with talent as special as Songguk's. If you entrust him to us, we'll nurture him into a great actor, Songjung said. Myeong was aware that child actors always lose popularity when they grow up. They just lock them in long-term contracts when they're hot, milk them for advertising revenue, and then discard them. She could see that Songguk seemed to have no backing. She closed the contract and bravely declined the offer. Upon hearing her decision, Songguk was glad. Songjung, on the other hand, smiled and asked her why. She then honestly replied that a 70/30th split was unreasonable. Furthermore, she believed a 10-year contract wasn't suitable for Songguk. She was sure that Songguk's value would increase in the future. You're quite confident. I understand your affection for the child, but the child actor market isn't that big. They don't earn much compared to adult actors, Songjung proclaimed, which annoyed Songguk as he felt they were being looked down upon by the old man. Soyoung covered her son's ears when Songjung added that Songguk's value would plummet if his looks changed as he grew. How could you say such things in front of a child? She asked with annoyance. Seong-guk was already mad at him. He was confident this old man would age into an ugly toad, while he would get better as he grew. He was venting his anger, and his mother was asking him to calm down. Myeong then stood up and informed Songjung they would be leaving. But before they left, Songjung asked her why she kept butting in if she wasn't even Seong-guk's mother. An outsider should stay out of this, right? He uttered. Soyoung was triggered and wanted to say something to Songjung, but she stopped when Myeong claimed she was Seong-guk's manager. The manager, I said, so I don't have anything to say, right? She asked. She informed Songjung that she had experience working at an advertising company, which was why she could confidently say the contract was unfair. Songjung gritted his teeth out of annoyance. He was mad while Myeong and Soyoung were leaving the room. You'll regret this. Do you think you can disrespect me and still have a place in the broadcasting world? He said. Seong-guk was annoyed, believing the old man was showing his true colors. We'll see about that. We'll just have to wait and see, Myeong replied. They then left the entertainment company of Songjung. Soyoung was worried, seeing Myeong still annoyed. Myeong cursed Songjung. She couldn't forgive him for threatening a pregnant woman. Seong-guk agreed with her. She looked back at Soyoung and asked her if she was fine, and Soyoung then told her that she thought she had it worse than her. Myeong then said no and explained that people like Songjung were all over the industry, and for her, there was absolutely no need to sign a contract with a company like Sinsung. Soyoung was speechless, so Myeong told her they should take a bus across the street. Myeong was surprised when Soyoung asked her if she would consider becoming Seong-guk's real manager. Seong-guk didn't have any issues with it. In business, people learn that while talented individuals are plentiful, trustworthy ones are rare. Myeong had industry knowledge. More importantly, she had shown herself to be trustworthy. A trustworthy person who was also good at their job, a great talent. Myeong didn't want to accept the offer, stating that she wasn't an entertainment expert. However, Seong-guk was showing excitement. He was pointing at her, wanting to tell her she would become his comrade. Soyoung then said that her son looked like he wanted Myeong to be his manager. She then told Myeong that she and her husband didn't know anything, so she was begging Myeong to help them protect Seong-guk's future. Myeong was thrilled. She thanked Soyoung for trusting her, and she proclaimed she was now dreaming of a new dream. She accepted becoming Seong-guk's manager, and the three then hugged each other. The night came. A subordinate of Songjung came to his office and reported the name of Myeong and where she worked. The subordinate also informed the old man that Myeong was the building owner where Seong-guk lived. Songjung smiled and belittled Myeong in his mind. If they're not under me, Shin Songjung, I'll have to show them just how tough the entertainment industry can be, he said, and commanded his subordinate to call reporters. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment for another part, and subscribe to this channel for more content like this. Till next time.